Welcome back to Punk Rock Theologian. Continuing through the book, we hit the story of the fiery furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Or if you prefer the VeggieTales names that are a lot easier to say, we'll call them Rack, Shack, and Benny. I really don't have time to go into all of the backstory about how they got those names, because those are not their Hebrew names. Their real names are Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, although I might not be pronouncing them right. Leading up to today's story, they had been taken captive into Babylon, they were given new names, they were trained up in the Babylonian culture, and they did really well. They were promoted to pretty high positions. They're important figures in the king's court at this point. That king is Nebuchadnezzar. He's the single most powerful king that had ever existed at that point, possibly ever. And in Daniel chapter 2, there was this whole thing where he had a dream that basically boiled down to God revealing to him that his kingdom and his power is really special, but it's not gonna last forever. But then chapter 3 opens with Nebuchadnezzar like flatly flying in the face of that dream and building this big statue to honor himself that's essentially saying, I'm so awesome, I'm practically God. They have this sort of ceremony that when the music plays, everyone is supposed to bow down and worship this statue of Nebuchadnezzar. They're worshiping him as a god. It's not a big shock that our Hebrew guys take issue with that, and they refuse to do it. And some other people rat them out for it, and pretty soon they're standing face to face with Nebuchadnezzar, who, by the way, knows these guys. It's not the first time they've met. In Daniel 3:15, we get Nebuchadnezzar's version of mercy. He said, I'll give you one more chance to worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instrument. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power? That last line is so telling. Not only does it show how awesome he thinks he is, but it shows that he is fully aware that the whole disagreement here is over their God. He doesn't mind that they worship their God. He just wants them to worship him too. When these guys are taking a stand and saying, no, that would violate our God, Nebuchadnezzar gets offended. But if you keep reading, their response is the best part of this whole story. Normally I just read through passages like this, but I can't make it more than a sentence without giving commentaries, so we're going to go a line at a time. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. That is so gangster. These guys are stepping up to the most powerful man on the planet and saying, I don't even have to give a defense. I'm not intimidated by you because my God is bigger than you. That's insane. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. That is a point-blank rebuttal to what he just said. Nebuchadnezzar had just thrown out, what God could rescue you from my power? And they said, our God can. He'll save us from your power. With him on our side, we're not afraid of you. But the next line is the best piece. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you have set up. They are confident in the power of their God, but they're even going so far to say, I'm hoping he'll come through and save us, but even if he doesn't, I would rather be executed knowing that I've trusted him than stand here with you trying to take his place. That is some next level boldness. But Nebuchadnezzar is a pretty over-the-top character, and so he totally flies off the handle at this one. He orders that they heat the furnace 7 times hotter. I'm not sure how they verified and checked that. He gets the strongest men in his army to tie these guys up and throw them in. Those soldiers died in doing so because it was so hot. And here's where the story gets wild. Nebuchadnezzar is looking and watching this like he's got an observation port so he can watch people burn. I don't know if he's just that crazy. But all of a sudden he notices 4 people walking around in the furnace. He jumps up, calls them to come out, and they come walking out totally unharmed. This makes me crazy. I want more details of what that was like in there, because we don't know what was going through their minds. We know what it was like for Nebuchadnezzar on the outside, but I want to know what it was like for the guys on the inside. Could they see and hear each other? Are they standing around going, well, this is different, didn't see this coming? Did it feel hot? Could they feel the flames? Could they see the 4th guy in there with them? Were they having a conversation? Because nothing ever mentions that again. Once they come out, there's not a word about the 4th person in there. Scholars almost universally agree that that was Jesus in there with them, but what happened? What did he say? And why didn't Daniel write it down? It drives me crazy. And I think it's showing us that none of that stuff is the point. The point of the story is the stuff I highlighted earlier. It's them taking the stand and saying, you know what? It would be better to go into the furnace with God than to avoid the furnace, but let anything else take his place in my life. And we don't get the story from the 3 guys' perspective because they're not the main character of the story. Nebuchadnezzar is. This is a story of him being impacted and changed because that's what happened. hands. When they come out, he is blown away, and he suddenly issues a decree that their God is the Most High God, and no one can say anything against him. It's quite a move from the guy who minutes ago was demanding that people worship him. And this is the point of the story. We're not the main characters in our own story. Jesus is. And it's about what other people see him do in us and through us. That's what makes an impression. Our own stuff and our own thoughts matter for a little bit, but Jesus matters for eternity. These three guys were well aware that they had absolutely no ability to resist the king's command. But they trusted God, and they no doubt hoped that he was going to intervene, but they decided up front that they would rather suffer with God than try to survive without him. That's the takeaway for each of us to this day. Following Jesus straight into a fire is better than walking away from him to play it safe.